Welcome to the Model Car Hobby Podcast with your host, Luka C. Now here he is, Luka C. Well, hello, my fellow car modelers. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of the Model Car Hobby Podcast. And we have a guest today that is someone who, him and I go way back, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of catch up, is John Dezan. Did I say it right?
Bingo. Perfect. I accept.
Oh, gosh. See, I used to, because it was all on the internet. Him and I just typing. We'll get into that. Never talked face to face. It's like really this is almost really the first time for us. Yeah.
It's not like I've met you at NNL East or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We've never crossed paths in that way. So in my head, reading his name was always he was always John Dezan to me, and Dezan, Dezan,
long A,
screwing it all up. So
data versus data.
Yep, exactly. That's how we go. So I mean, so before we started the show, I sat there and practiced. So there we go. And I'm not going to attempt to ruin it again. so anyways, but John, we go way back to the early days of the internet, the model car hobby on the internet. And for those of you who, might not been around way back there in the Wayback Machine, we go back in like the late 90s, early O's, there was this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place on the internet. Remember message boards? And there was this place called Hobby Heaven. And it was. And we all got to know one another all over the world, all of us model car guys. And it was the start of this hobby and this world getting smaller and everyone getting to know each other. And that's where John and I became friends way, way back in the day, and just passing tips and talking about stuff and posting pictures of our stuff. And that was a great thing. And eventually it morphed into Spotlight Hobbies. And some of you may know about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's where we came from. And, John's just been kind of a fixture in the hobby. Here and there, his name would pop up. And John, he done for, if any of you recall, back in the day, Model King, right? Model King was bringing all the old kits back, and he did the box art for the Bronco. It was the 80. It was on the trailer. Yep. So you built the whole Bronco and the Cougar on the trailer.
I just built the blue Bronco on the side of the box.
Okay. Did you take the pictures, or you just built the Bronco and that was it? So that's your claim to fame.
Sent the Bronco, packed it up, mailed it off to the guy who has the Model Car Muse channel.
Oh, yeah. Doug White. That'd be Doug White.
And he took the pictures of it, sent it back to me, and
there you go. Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. See, it's just like that. That's what was kind of starting to happen. That was really cool about the hobby back then, and the start of the internet is it really kind of made a lot of neat things like that happen between all of us and our hobby. It was really, I want to say it really, really spiked the hobby when that all started happening, and it all pretty much the center point, the nucleus of it all, or whatever, was the Hobby Heaven message board. Everybody was on that.
Everybody was on it. I mean, the people behind NNL East were on it.
That's right.
But what example?
Oh yeah, I got to meet and got to meet people.
And you probably met some of those guys when you did get to NNL East.
Oh yeah,
you met Tom Geiger. You met Bill.
Well, I haven't. I talked to them all. I've never made it to NNL East yet, but I remember back then with my old resin casting business, Tom Geiger invited me. He said, I have a table if I want to come out there, because I know they were starting to they wanted to turn the NNL East into also like a model car hobby
aftermarket
expo, aftermarket expo, and which it's pretty much still is. And I will one day make it there and represent my company there. And also you used to be a host on a podcast called the Model Car Podcast.
Which is why you had your unpodcast, right?
I had my unpodcast, which was this show. And I had the unpodcast because I didn't cast it on any podcasting things. It was only on YouTube. So I thought it'd be,
okay. Cool.
you know me, I like to tongue in cheek things. I thought it was funny for some crazy idea. But now, this show is on Spotify also and on YouTube, so it is now the Model Car Hobby Podcast.
Cool.
Why not? And then, of course, I am one of 4 nutbags that are on the Scale Model Car Podcast, which it is called the Scale Model Car Podcast because you guys already had Model Car Podcast.
Okay.
You see? So I said, well, let's throw Scale in there.
But you could probably get away calling it the Model Car Podcast now because, as far as I know, everything of the podcast is actually gone.
Yeah, but you know, as difficult as it is to say, because it just seems so natural, just say the Model Car Podcast. We'll probably keep it that because kind of created a brand. Well, I don't know.
You created a brand now.
Just be the Scale.
You don't need to.
And we got stickers. We have stickers. So, but yeah,
we have stickers, but there's only like 5, maybe.
Anyway, so yeah. So I just, we got the opportunity to meet up again. You came on to one of my producers' live streams with our buddy Chris Martin, my partner, yeah. So you were visiting him on the night that we were streaming, and hey,
I was visiting him because we were going to the contest in the Canadian Maritimes next day. So
that's right, yeah. So that was a cool. You and I made reconnection, I should say. And I said, "Hey, you should come onto my podcast and we could talk about model car crap. Why not? You know, that's what we do because we've been doing it for a long time."
I got distracted. I mean, as I told you, pre-show, my cousin and his partner run a airbed and breakfast here on site, and they just literally put in a new cabin that opened for renting on the 3rd of July. So the whole month of June, any spare time I had was, I don't even know if I touched a model. It was all spent assembling this, assembling that, helping with this, helping with that.
Oh, yes. Chris told me about that.
So yeah.
Now you got some time, so we thought we'd sit down and talk.
Exactly.
But, well, just to kind of get the show rolling, just for a goof, a gaff, having fun, whatever. Let's get everybody to get to know you. Why don't you I ask everybody this, what, when, and how and why did you start getting into this thing called model cars, and everything in between till you sitting down with me right now? You want to tell the story?
The what, where, when, why, and how of getting involved was, believe it or not, as a young child, I had horrible hand-eye coordination. So one of my report cards, I think, was grade 3, and my teacher was Miss Hyman. She sent a notice home that I should start building models to improve my hand-eye coordination. Now, this goes back to 1970 something. Let's not give an actual date because then I'm not certain exactly which day it was. But it was grade 3, grade 4, and being born in '68, you can do the math. This was before video games even existed. Well, I say that, but no, Ataris were probably.
I think we had Pawn.
Yeah, but I didn't at that time.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Miss Hyman said, you should get John involved in models. So the first 2 models that I built, and I still remember to this day, they're both airplanes, and they're painted with Tester silver. So if they still exist somewhere, somehow in the garbage somewhere, the silver should be dry by now.
Or it's still curing.
Exactly.
Real quick, I do got to say, it's funny you talk about that. I built a model car, one of my first model cars when I was a kid, that I painted it with Tester silver with a brush.
Yep.
So I can relate. We'll just leave it at that.
Just to finish the story with Miss Hyman, a year and a half ago, I moved from French Canada, Quebec, to the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia. And on my last day in Quebec, the morning before I signed over my house for the sale, I met with Miss Hyman. And she was amazed that I was still building models after all these years. And she was just amazed to see, that she had that sort of lasting effect because she is now a retired teacher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was, it was really wonderful for me to be able to sit down with her on my last day in my hometown, where I spent 54 of my 55 years at that point, or 53 of my 54 years of my life at that point, to meet with her. She was still around, still alive, and I got to touch base
cool.
with her.
That's really neat.
Yeah, and it was, I guess, cathartic. Would that be the word I want it? Or something along those lines, regardless.
Yeah,
I so enjoyed it.
I could see that. Yeah. And it had to be something for her, the fact of, any teacher. I come from a family of teachers. Both my parents were teachers, so I kind of know their thinking. To meet up with an ex-student, especially many years later, to find out that, you had an impact in how their life went, something important in their life. That's got to be the most gratifying thing to ever have, and every teacher that I've ever known, they say, if I can make an impact on one kid or something like that, then
apparently she did.
And she did. And here you go. You're building models.
Yep. Continued building models off and on, teenage. I never stopped. I'm one of those weird guys. Yeah, I sort of discovered girls, but given what I got, it was never really. Let me put myself down.
At least you're being honest, right?
At least I'm being honest. I don't, I'm at my highest, I was 5'6". At my heaviest, I was a lot heavier than I am now. Maybe I'm a bit more. As I put, I'm a chunky monk. So, but yeah, I continued building and never stopped. Got to 1988, 89. That would put me 2021. And I discovered 2 issues of Scale Auto Enthusiast in the newsstand of a bookstore. And I knew that there was a store in the mall that had a model, or I could buy the 2 magazines. And I bought the 2 magazines. And shortly there afterwards took out multi-year subscription, 2 years at a time, and started learning. That's when I came across the names like Terry Jesse and Tim Bungard, who I guess you know of.
A little bit. You caught that one, huh? That little goof.
Oh yeah, I caught that one. I told you I've watched some of your stuff, Luka.
That was funny. And Dan Doan, our buddy Dan Doan.
And Dan Doan, yes, I met him at NNL East.
Yeah, with Dan Doan, he's if any of you watch, of course, my videos with the with the model car mafia, Dan shows up a lot. And there was one time he was wearing your shirt, and he's saying hi to you. But yeah,
and he did say hi. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was funny. But yeah,
it was just the neatest part about meeting Dan was, I knew he was from Arizona.
Yeah.
And here we were, us, especially myself and Robert, we were walking around in the host hotel the Friday night before NNL East in short sleeve shirts because, hey, it's nice and warm. They were mowing the grass when we were coming down on Friday. It's nice and warm. Mm-hmm. Here's Dan with his hoodie on and the hood on, and you can just about see him going like this.
Yeah, Arizona
he's not saying it, but dang, it's cold.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
And that's the one thing that sticks in my head about meeting Dan. Is he really looked uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, Dan's a great guy. I've known Dan for decades.
As long as you've been there.
Probably the best. Yeah, he's a wonderful guy, and he's incredibly knowledgeable about model kits. But I yet to see a built model from him. He's like me. We kind of goof
there
about
are people
it.
Like that, But
people, he loves that. It doesn't matter. He loves the hobby so much. He really is. There's times him and I, he would stay when the model meetings are at my house, and he stays after. And him and I will spend hours just BSing about all this crap. Mm-hmm. So it's fun. We're all into it. That's what gets us. That's what makes us all kind of a brotherhood.
I have had the pleasure of meeting everybody that I fell in love with the writing. Terry Jesse, I loved his articles. I've met him at NNL East. I've met George Boyachuk, Mr. Muscle Car of the time back then in Scale Auto Enthusiast. The one person I haven't met yet is Tim Bungard, but He moved back east when I moved down here, and it's like,
you'll probably bump into him. I just thought it was so hilarious, the fact that when I made that video and pulled up his article, when I do my little retrospective of the great scale, the Gary Schmidt era scale auto, I love honoring Gary Schmidt in that magazine from back then. Because oddly enough, I'm jumping all over the place, but oddly enough, it was about the same time period I did the exact same thing you did. I walked into the hobby shop to buy a model, and there were a couple of Scale Model Enthusiast magazines there, and I had to buy them all, and that's what I bought instead. And that really catapulted the hobby for me. What was that first magazine? Do you remember which one it was?
The Girls of Scale Auto Enthusiast. Can't think of Ken's last name right now, but the guy who does all the dioramas. Hamilton,
yes. Cam Hamilton. I almost had it. Yep. Yeah, that was. I remember that one.
I met him too.
Yeah, and then you said, like, for me, I'm kind of the same way. All the guys from Scale Auto back then, they're like my heroes, because that's why I started this channel and what I do. It's because I was so intrigued by the scale automotive journalism, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to write for the magazine so bad, or do my own thing, which YouTube gave that to me. And it's the really big plus is it's gotten me to meet all those guys. I've had Terry Jesse on this show. I've had Doug White. And there's other guys. I'm like, oh man,
wait. You've had Terry Jesse on here?
I've had Terry Jesse on here. Go back and watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
It was a great one. It's one of my favorite. Terry is great, and Terry's one of my faves. He really is. And to get him on, when I messaged him and said, Terry, you want to come on my show? It's called the Podcast. He goes, oh yeah. I guess he had heard of me or something. Yeah. And it was a great conversation. Yeah, you got to go watch that. That's a super good one. And Doug White, and I hope to have, I want to have Ken on, and I want to have Tim Boyd. I'd love to have Tim Boyd on. And,
Tim Boyd would be cool. I've seen him from afar at NNL East, but
yeah, it'll happen. I admire those guys. I think they're all extremely important to the hobby, and they need to be remembered. And the people that are in the hobby today need to know about the past. That's why you even have, I have a lot of different people on, especially people that have been in it in a long time, like you and I, to talk about the past, because I think it's really important to remember it. We wouldn't have it the way it is today if it wasn't for them.
If you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat the past.
Oh yeah, no kidding, and that can go in a bad way. But
that can go in a very bad way. I mean, this is just model cars. It's not going to go in a bad way, but you should still
you never know
how we got here from the kits that were being designed in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, I'm currently working on the AMT American LaFrance fire engine. Oh God, I spent two settings of 4 hours just to build the chassis. Straight, square, smooth it out, this, that, you got it.
Yeah.
Oh man. But I'll explain why I'm doing this.
Okay, we'll keep in mind. We'll get to that then, definitely. You got to give it is full credit to Gary Schmidt, Scale Auto Enthusiast, and all those guys that wrote for it that got the hobby and the manufacturers to stop looking at model kits as toys, and they started swaying more to designing things for adult builders. Found out that's who's buying the kits.
Look at Mobius.
Yeah, exactly.
Mobius kits are definitely designed for adults. There's no question.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not saying younger people can't build them, but it's the Lone Star, for example, or even any of the Ford pickups.
Oh my goodness, yeah, absolutely. And
should I say the Mercury pickup?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, all those Fords that they did in that Mercury pickup, that just goes to show you. And it goes back to the model kit that was really the breakthrough. That's still a popular kit today. That I remember, it was around those issues that both you and I kind of got into Scale Auto towards the late 80s. It was writing articles and talking about to readers, what is it that you want to see in a model kit, and that's why AMT
the infamous 66 Nova.
That is 66 Nova came about because of that. And it's still one of the most popular kits today. That has been and I hate to, I don't think we'll ever see that thing go. I got plenty of them. But
I only have
doesn't say another one will ever show up, but I love that kit.
If they want to sell me another one, they can come up with the Pontiac Acadian Cancel.
Oh,
which is the Canadian version of the car, but
yes,
it's not going to happen.
Cool.
But
I tell you what,
I'd love to see an all-styrene Beaumont too.
Man, that would be so cool. I tell you, and that's something that Chris Martin and I have talked about. If there's a way that I could pull off a conversion kit for making Arcadias and Beaumonts and stuff like that.
The Model Car Garage did do a resin nose and photo etch to do the Beaumont.
Did they?
They did.
Wow, I never knew that. I want one now.
I have one. I had one. I don't know where it is. I know it did. Wherever it is, it did not get left in French Canada. Okay.
Okay.
Right down to the floor.
I tell you, I am very surprised that a 3D printing company hasn't, no 3D print designers or nothing done those yet, because I figured that would be really high up on the. Okay, all right.
You don't know nothing. That's all I'm saying.
I know nothing. I know.
Chris has told me something, so it's like, okay, I'm waiting.
I will wait. I will wait. I will wait. I will wait. Yeah, back to like Tim Bungard. That was so funny that I did this video on the retrospect of that issue that he had a car in that excited me. And this is where Dan Doan came in. What's the Chameleon Thunderbird? And this is where Dan Doan comes in. Now, at this point in time when I made that video, I tell you what, you want to do a snap?
Oh, this one?
Yeah. All right. Thank you. This video right here, guys, go check it out. I do a whole retrospective on that issue of Scale Auto. Okay. So I get to the Tim Bungard thing. Now, at the time of the making of the recording of that video, I was getting together with BG and a couple of our other friends and Tim Bungard every Thursday night for model building. He was in our model club at that point in time.
And you didn't realize who he was.
Nope. Hey, he's a humble guy. We never talked about things like that. And I never put together. I didn't really.
Did you realize what he was doing with his model time when he was there in Arizona?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You knew what he was doing. You knew what he's been selling for the past few years.
Oh, yeah. Because, and I hope to get started back with him as I was, I later on because of that, because I showed him my a resin grill that I made for the Squad 51 for him. And I want to get back into doing that again for him. I'm having some problems with that mold. I'm having problems with that piece for some reason.
This was early on, so I made sure I was a very early purchaser of the Squad 51 kit.
Yeah, that's a cool, that's a special one. Especially our generation, man. We watch that show a lot. But with Tim, it was just funny, this model meeting. So Dan Doan comes up to me, Tugs. He goes, "Look over there." And the video had just come out. I go, "Oh yeah, I saw that. It's like the model that I talked about in the video." He goes, "No, that is the model." "Oh yeah. No." And it took him 3 times to sink in my stupid head. And he was like, "No, that is the model that was in the article." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Tim Bungard built that."
That's Tim Bungard.
Oh, duh. And so I and then I was like, and I featured it in my video that night. But the thing is, after the camera was off, so I took Tim. I go, "Tim, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. I got to go off fanboy." "Oh, that's fine. Okay." So I came back in here. I grabbed my magazine that article is in, and I made him sign it. But I brought him up in front of the whole class, the whole meeting, and I said, "Everybody, you got to watch my video. I said all this, and this is how hard-headed I am. We have them right here in the club." And that's what I said. And he was just like, he was just kind of like humbled the fact that someone would look at it that way. But all those guys kind of are like that. Terry was too. It's like, no, you guys don't realize how important you were to this hobby, especially us that have been in it since back in those days. You really shaped all of us. That was an important magazine. And I still have all my issues and more. We were really bummed losing Tim Bungard from our community here in Phoenix, but
he was there for what, the better part of 20 years?
I don't know how long, but I was like, I only got to know him and hang out with him for like the last 4 or 5 months that he was here.
Oh,
God.
like,
man, that sucks. But, that's how it goes. But I got a friend now. I'll run into him again when I get my butt out there to go to like NNL East or something. But you just continued out. You never stopped. That's kind of like how I never stopped once I got into the hobby, and especially that moment when I found Scale Auto Enthusiast. I never stopped.
Enthusiast had introduced me to ideas and concepts.
Oh my goodness!
Bare metal foil, flocking. Oh my god!
MSC products, man, that was the thing for me when I first saw that MSC products ad. What, I can get spark plug wires and braided line for these models?
Yep.
I'm doing it.
And then the constant airbrush. Oh my god!
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Not knowing what I was doing in comparison to today, but my paint still got better.
Yeah.
Polishing kits, LMG polishing kits.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I still have one today.
Yeah.
I still have.
I just bought, mind you, I just buy the pads as I need them in bulk packages at NNL East, but
yeah,
I've got enough to last me probably till
oh yeah.
Till the cows come home. All these people who could write so nicely. I mean, everybody wrote nicely, but the one that got me the most was your buddy Tim, Mr. Bungard. How he could tell stories and make it interesting. And
yes,
at that point, I decided I really wanted to try scratch building, and that was about the point where he left Scale Auto Enthusiast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be what, like early 90s?
Early 90s? Couldn't tell you when, but it was just devastating to me at the time, because I look back at it now and say, if he'd stuck around a little bit longer and shown me more of the basics then, I'd probably be scratch building. Been scratch building for the past 20 years.
Yeah, he did have some great articles on all kinds of stuff like that.
Instead, I sort of started following George Boyachuk and muscle cars.
Yeah, not a problem there either. So many great guys came through that magazine. Were just so influential to our hobby. They definitely are owed a debt of gratitude.
Yep, for sure. Going back to where we were, this was late 80s, early 90s. Continued working and building my skills. And then Hobby Heaven, the message board. My God. Now I could actually talk with people that I only had seen in the pages of Scale Auto Enthusiast. I mean, there was Terry Jesse, for example. There was Ken Hamilton. It's like, my God, I can actually talk with them. And then I got to know others that I'd only heard brief mentions of, almost like a whisper, if you will, like Charlie Rowley from Northern Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That if he was online, I would suggest you need to interview him. But aside from posting on what is still Hobby Heaven, it's now known as Spotlight Hobbies, he doesn't do anything like this, as far as I know. Which is fine. I mean, I believe he's in his 80s. He's a retired firefighter, retired architect, retired, not so much architect, but surveyor. So, and he has a grandson who has special needs. So, yeah, I get it. Let Charlie have his fun.
Yeah.
Let Charlie be Charlie. And if anybody's ever seen, you need to look for Charlie Rowley. There are pictures out there. If you ever see a picture of a model fire apparatus on a green background, that's Charlie's work.
Oh, yes.
And they're out there. I mean, the first time I went to NNL East, here was Charlie's completely scratch built late 30s Seagrave V12 with dual plugs, opening hood, and it was a tiller, which means it's a ladder, the extendable ladder trucks on a trailer and stuff. Oh my God, that thing was just amazing to see in person.
Oh, and of course, I know that.
You know that. Everybody knows that.
Oh, I know that. I know that model.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. You see it in person. It's one thing to see it in a magazine. Seeing it in person is wow.
Well, that's the thing with those the guys, there's not a lot of model kits out there for that stuff. You got to scratch build it, and the scratch building is just so incredible.
There's that, and I also happen to have a thing for heavy tow trucks, but that's another. There's no kits for that stuff either.
No, I know. We're getting more nowadays than we had in the past, but no, there's not a lot.
There, I got to know other people in the hobby, some that I've mentioned, some that I won't mention, and then there was NNL East. When you get a private invitation from one of the organizers of NNL East, you don't dare say no, do you?
No, I did.
Yeah, well, I
didn't say no. I just couldn't make it out there.
Yeah, I get it. You're a lot further than I was. I mean, driving time, it was 7 hours for me. I'd never driven 7 hours straight before in my life. Drove there and didn't regret it.
Yeah, I imagine.
And for anybody who's not gone, you deserve to go at least once in your lifetime. But be prepared to have your mind blown. Because even though, you can hear, somebody could say, well, there's X amount of modelers and there's X amount of models and there's X amount of vendors. Numbers are numbers. When you see it in person, it's like, oh my God, there's this many people and they all like to build models.
I have never talked to anyone who's been there to say, it was okay show. Never.
No, you don't say that. No, I mean, My second year there, I met this guy coming in. I was going back out to my car for something, probably to take shopping back to the car.
Yeah.
He looked dazed and bewildered. I said, "Is this your first time here?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Is your mind blown?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, they've done their job then."
Yeah. Isn't that something about that show?
Oh, it is. Yeah. There's no record. It's amazing.
For years, all I've ever heard is "you gotta go, you gotta go,"
well,
and it's
I'm
like,
repeating it, Luka, you gotta go.
Yeah, I am. I don't know if it'll happen at the next one, but within the next two, I'm going to be at it. It is on my bucket list, as they say. But it's more. It's gotten more than that now. It is a. I got to get there. I have to get there. I have to get to that show. There's certain things that I'm willing to do, and that is one of them. Going to like Acme. I went to Acme in 21, and it was the most amazing experience. And I was told by people in the know that said, if you liked Acme, you need to go to NNL East.
Bob Downey, there's another person I've met.
Oh, Bob. That's another guy. Yeah, Bob Downey was one from the old Hobby Heaven.
Yep.
Hobby Heaven
one of the
message
old
board.
Hobby Heaven names. And, yep.
Yeah, he's great people. All those guys, man. People don't understand what it takes to do all these things that these guys do, what they're giving for the hobby. And it all owes to be, whether it's working in the magazines or putting on model shows, man, they're doing it for us, and it's a lot of work. So super appreciative of any of that stuff. I'll
give you one Bob Downey story.
Let's hear it.
One of the first times I was at an East, Skill Auto Enthusiast or Model Car Magazine, I forget which one. One of them wanted to photograph my model, so I, grabbed the model, did the paperwork, and Bob was sitting just at an angle away from the photographer's table. Yeah, I want to say it was Skill Auto because it was the editor who nobody really liked. I can't think of his name. Jim Hawk. He said, "Why did you build this Ferrari, which is supposed to be red, in this color?" And I knew what Bob Downey looked like, even though I hadn't introduced myself to Bob Downey. And I just looked over at him and I pointed right at him. And I said, because he said nobody should build red Ferraris. And Bob looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I did do that."
Oh, man. Influence.
It's true. Yep, influence.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was a pale gold color, I think is what the car is. And it's like,
oh my goodness. How dare you?
Yeah. Gregorio or something. So it was great.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have a specific type of model cars that you really sway to, or you're just like, or you just do whatever comes?
Generally there's a lot of whatever, but especially as I grow older, why do I want to be, killing myself doing this when somebody else can do this?
Yeah.
But You know, like for example, earlier this year, I got a model of a crane, a mobile crane in 1/35th scale.
Oh wow,
You should
yeah,
see the size of the box for 1/35th scale. It's huge.
I can imagine.
And the boom, even though it's 1/35th scale, I think the instructions say, or the box says, it extends or can be extended to 30 inches.
Oh, wow,
So were it bigger, holy shoot, that
yeah,
would be
that's
just a
big.
massive truck.
Yeah,
Regardless, I've all because of George Boyachuk's influence on me as a much younger modeler, I got very interested in doing muscle cars. The muscle cars have evolved from just a generic muscle car to being much more specific. The first replica I ever built was of a friend's 70 Ford Mustang Mach 1.
oh yeah.
And I used parts from 7 different kits to build that car.
Hmm.
And now I'm sort of, even though I haven't started building them yet, it's a matter of deciding which one I want to start first. But what I want to be building are the rare muscle cars, the one of two, the one of one. Even
Mm.
if sometimes the combination is that, it's just the color that makes it one of one. Yeah, but there's only one of one. Only one nut was crazy enough to order that car back in the day.
Yeah,
And the weird color combinations work for me too. I mean, to see a car that is, for example, a Mopar that's black with a burnt orange interior, that in my world is cool. But
yeah,
as a lot of guys get into, they like to do TV and movie builds, right?
yeah.
Tim Bungard, what does he do? He does the trucks from Emergency.
That's right.
So I have one extra of his kits. It's a mini pumper. It's a one-ton
Hmm.
mini pump. That's just a generic fire engine. Don't know exactly how I'll finish it yet, but I have Emergency, the Squad 51. I have his Crown Fire Coach, and I have his Ward LaFrance. Sitting on my workbench right now is the Crown Fire Coach being started. That's what I'm building the
Yeah,
American LaFrance chassis for, because that's what he recommends to use for it. So
yeah. Well,
there you go. I've also have enough interest in trying to build replicas of the fire trucks from my hometown in Quebec because one, they're Ford C's or the Ford Canopy series trucks, which in my book, awful hard to make a truck look much better than a Ford C series. My hometown ran a gas-powered 73 Ford Pierreville, which means the fire truck body was built in Quebec by a little town on the St. Lawrence River. That's the fire engine, the pumper. And later they bought what has to be one of the last Ford C Series fire engines built. In this case, it was a big dual drive, diesel powered 100-foot ladder truck. And this one was by Thibault, which is a big name in
yeah,
fire
yeah.
apparatus.
I've never built a fire truck. It's always kind of like been in my head, but I have been, especially since Tim, when I met him and he's been doing the Squad 51. There's been a couple times I thought about doing Squad 51s, but now that he has that kit, everybody loves Squad 51 for crying out loud. That was a cool look. I was infatuated with that
Did you know
truck.
that the firefighter who floated the idea to the LA County Fire Department of an emergency squad, a paramedic squad, was a modeler?
Really?
He presented the idea with a scratch. He took a Dodge pickup chassis and cab, and he scratch built the utility box for it, presented it to them in 3D form. This fellow's name is Tom Showers, and his work has been featured in Scale Auto Enthusiast.
Oh, I heard
Yeah,
I heard
you've
that there
heard
was a
that name
model
before,
involved.
haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was a Los Angeles County Fire Department firefighter, and he
Yeah.
presented the concept to them. This is what we need now, and they went for it.
Yeah, wasn't it something that almost the TV show was like a thing to kind of
The TV show
present it?
was the actual catalyst for them actually getting paramedic gear and medications on board the squads. If you
Mm-hmm.
watch the premiere episode of which was an hour and a half, 2 hour movie, and it's on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's out of Station 10, if memory serves, Squad 10. It was Johnny Gage's first assignment. It was because of that incident that they decided that they needed to have the drugs and gear on board the paramedic squads.
Really?
And if you follow it through the years of the show. Originally, Squad 51 said rescue squad on the back ends of the boxes.
Yeah.
By the end of the series, it was saying paramedic squad.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're being recognized as paramedics now. Now, in
Yeah.
theory, why does all this matter to you, John? Because John has had an uncle and 4 friends who've been firefighters. And the uncle was also on his local ambulance squad. He was featured on the TV news for saving somebody's life. And this matters because this uncle in Quebec, even to this day, they don't carry all the necessary gear that even Squad 51 had back then.
Mm-hmm.
Even today in Quebec with the ambulances, they will admit that basically it's you scoop and run. This uncle of mine lived in Quebec, but he undertook training in Ontario, Canada. He undertook training in Vermont, in the United States of America, in New Hampshire in the United States of America. Anywhere that offered training within a day's travel for him, he went and got and paid for out of his own pocket. It embarrassed him to be on the TV news, but my uncle Larry, who was also the fire chief of his local fire department, he deserved that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
First responders are they're special people, and that's the thing that kind of shows you too. They're also incredibly humble. It's like, oh, you guys are heroes. No, not a hero.
No, exactly it.
Yeah,
exactly.
You definitely, it's a special person to do that kind of stuff, and that's something where I always found it fascinating. I don't know, as a little kid, meeting a fireman or a policeman, and I wanted to be when I was young, and I did try at one time, try to become a police officer. I always kind of looked at them as like movie stars, like almost they were on the shows that I watch. I love Emergency and of course Adam 12 and all that, which I love police cars. I want to build more models of police cars, and I have one sitting in my driveway right now, so we want to fix up. We actually want to restore it back to what it was. Yeah, I've always loved police cars, and I got a few in the stash that one of these days I'll build. I do like that.
I know how you feel.
But I do want to do the Squad 51 one of these days. I think I am going to get a hold of Tim and gather the parts and do that. I've got a few Dodge trucks. I think I could do that. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only one doing fire apparatus anyways, I believe. So
kits of it, yeah. There's other modelers that I've met. There's a guy somewhere about my age. I can't remember his name, but I met him at NNL East. And there's Charlie Rowley, who's doing scratch building his own.
Yeah.
And then there's Zali or Zoltan Halnicki. He's from DC, Delaware, somewhere in there, and he scratch builds his too. But he's sort of taken to playing with full-size cars right now. So,
oh yeah, that happens. I'm kind of
that
over
happens.
Full-size car. Yeah, I know that happens. Yeah. We get a crossover of that sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you something.
Sure.
So we have the logo up there in the corner. I wonder if everybody's wondering, what is this Can-Am Garage? And that's kind of like your brand you created. And I know
my brand, and
probably saw it in with our buddy Dan Doan wearing your shirt and saying hi to you on our videos. Yep. But so,
and how did it start? Right?
How did it start? Right?
How did it start?
Yeah, let us know what that is.
Well, it all started because the Hobby Heaven message board. Everybody was taking pictures of finished models, and I looked at that and I said, it doesn't look realistic. Just sitting a model on a desk or even with a plain white background, it just didn't look realistic. Yeah. What if I come up with a scale garage, if you will, to put it in? So I came up with a diorama and ran through 3, 4, 5 variations, I think is what I'm at, for a total now of what one section of the Can-Am garage could look like on the inside, if such a thing as the Can-Am garage existed. The name came from the fact that I lived, about 30 miles from the American border with Vermont when I was living in Quebec. And, well, there's nothing there that really says Can-Am in one of the border communities, or the border community. It's known as the Three Villages now, or Les Trois Villages. It's Stansted, Rock Island, and Beebe. Beebe, Quebec is on the border with Beebe, Vermont, and the street that runs east-west right on the border is Canusa. And I said, what if I just twisted that a little bit to Can-Am? And there's another hobby heaven message board. Dave Lindsay from California came up with the logo, drew the graphic, and to this day I'm still using the same graphic because there's no way to improve upon it. Even though in theory I'm nowhere near it, I guess still in my heart, it's still there. And
well,
of course,
it's kind of stuck. It's stuck with you.
Yeah, it's stuck with me. And then there's always surprised nobody's said anything, or you haven't said anything. You should remember Jackson.
Yeah.
Little plastic figure, stand him in the garage. That's how
remember Jackson very well.
Jackson looks against the car or against the pickup or against the tow truck or whatever.
That was
and believe it or not, there's actually a reason why he's Jackson.
Oh, let's hear this because
you'll love this one. Again, back in the day, back when I was 20-something, I met this older woman that if she wasn't into this one guy, who knows what could have happened anyway. Her name is MJ Mary Jane Laprise. Her guy was big into racing, and if you wanted to be racing and be racing in English, because his name is Lanny Cunningham, the place to go racing if you wanted to race in English was in northern New Hampshire at the Riverside Speedway in Groveton, New Hampshire. She convinced me, even though you're working 5 days a week with me, wouldn't you ought to come down on a Saturday, come races, I'll make sure you get in, no charge. I said, I couldn't care less about that, MJ, but yeah, to go and see some honest to goodness short track racing, and believe it or not, it's a paved oval. I was expecting dirt. It was a paved oval. It was very impressive. And they were talking about the little midget cars and the bigger, I won't say cup cars, but not far from it.
Yeah.
Saturday night specials. And of course, Lanny was there with his car and his name on the car. At the time I was driving a Mercury Mystique. It was blue, it was V6, nice car. Parked it in the field near where MJ and Lanny had their trailer, and this guy rolls up in this great big lifted pickup, stops just short of the Mercury, gets out, and says, "I could have just run that. I could have just parked on top of that if I'd wanted to," in a bit of a Southern New Hampshire drawl. And I said, "Okay." MJ comes out of the trailer. "Jackson, how are you doing?" Okay. There's Jackson, bigger than life. I'm 5'5", 5'6". Jackson was 6'2", 6'4". Huge mountain of a man.
Oh yeah.
And the name Jackson has stuck with me ever since.
Wow, I always wondered that. Now, I always thought that was really funny. And I'll tell you, the whole thing where I was coming to with this, why I wanted to talk about that is, and I think you influenced a lot of people, like you said. Everybody's taking pictures of models, but you brought that realistic setting, and then you would always tell like stories because you'd bring Jackson into it and talking about, Yeah,
because of course, at when I first started, the first one or two concepts was Jackson's garage. Yeah.
But it was the whole Can-Am garage. But it kind of, you spawned for a little while. There was somebody which I bought one from. There was somebody who started selling these, printed shops that you could assemble. They were selling the heck out of those. I can't remember. Models by Chris or something. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, Models by Chris. I have one of his garage sets.
Yeah, I have one too, and he made one in the colors I wanted that were of my resin casting company, Lookout, back in the day. And he printed it on the wall, and I said, "Print your name on there too, dude." And so I started taking my pictures with that, and then eventually I made my own background that was looked like a bricking, and I made it look like where I could make it look like inside or outside of a shop. But yeah, that definitely changed. I even did a drag strip once, and that changed. A lot of people really started getting into taking pictures of their models with a real simple background, but in photographs, it made it look more realistic. And it just made it fun. It just made it fun to share photos of our models. You were the guy who really started that up. From what I can remember, you were the first one doing that, and everybody started doing it. And that's a neat little contribution to the hobby you've done for, like, in the early days of our internet stuff. You're not seeing that so much anymore. I'd like to see some of that come back. You definitely inspired a lot of people to do that kind of thing, and I think it's a neat thing. I'd like to see it come more back into people taking pictures of their models and putting them on the Facebooks. It makes it neat.
Yeah, I got to get back to that, but I just don't have the space right now. So
yeah.
I want to build. I can either build or I can do that. It's one or the other. So.
Yeah, I know. I used to have. I had, when you did that, and I go, well, I'm going to do that, and I had my little setup. I had a spot in my model room that was specific set up. Everything was all right. There was lights there to take my pictures. I could just turn and do it. I had the room. I don't have the room here anymore, and I can't find my setup anymore. I want to start doing that again. But that was cool. Yeah, Jackson was funny. You still got Jack. He's still on the payroll, right?
He's still on the payroll. Yep.
Oh, yeah. But he's just waiting until you open up. In my
head,
shop.
Anyway, it's Jackson's Can-Am garage, but.
yeah. Well, that was neat. But yeah, man, those were the days. That was how it all started. We got so many Facebook groups that cover so much different types of modeling and car modeling and everything.
And you can't even keep track of them all.
It's hard to keep track of them. That was the first one. I mean, Tom Carter really started something big for us.
Yeah, he made the internet revolution for us scale modelers.
Definitely, it did.
And I should say car modelers, because we
that's all it was.
Build airplanes, but it's not the same. So.
Yeah, but that was strictly cars that was on that. I don't know if there was any things at that time. And I want to say, I don't know, when did you join it, but I want to say it was like 1999, 2000 is that's when I got my first computer. But I was getting on there. I was going to my parents' house using my mom's computer, or actually there was this thing. Do you remember a thing called Web TV or something like that? It was a weird device that you could basically get on chat rooms with it. It wasn't really a computer, but you could hook it to it. It was a keyboard you could hook to a TV, so you could get onto the internet and just look at websites. And that's how I found.
I said no, but now I'm thinking that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it was called Web TV, I want to say. And my mom had one of those, so I would go over to her house, and someone had told me about Hobby Heaven, and I had to check this out. And it was like, oh, this is neat. And then I immediately, when I bought my first computer, I guess I stayed up for 3 days straight playing on that thing. on that message board. So much information, so many cool people, and so much cool stuff getting posted. And
so many cool models. So many cool modelers.
So many.
And everybody, and that's the one thing, when I get the first adult I met in the hobby was Daniel Gaillou of Plasket, an aftermarket company here in Quebec. Not in Quebec anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck. I'm still there.
Still in your, well, you spent most of your life there, of course.
Anyway, and he said, the first thing he said to me is that we always share what we learn.
Yes.
Bingo.
And you know,
as is very popular saying here in the Maritimes, 100%. And 100 I do that to this day.
Oh yeah, I like that saying, 100%. I got to tell you, that's something that lately has been coming up a lot in quite a few podcast conversations I've been in. Is there was something that was kind of, you saw it a lot in the 80s, and there was secrecy.
Oh yeah. This is
I'm not going to tell you how to.
I'm not going to tell you how I polish my paint or how I airbrush or what should
exactly. I don't want to give out my.
Me.
I don't want to give up my secret. Well, that kind of changed with the Hobby Heaven message board. Now you had all these people that were willing to share how they did. They post a picture of a really cool model, and everybody go, "How'd you do that? What'd you do? How'd you do that?" And yeah, I started learning a lot of things because of that. that really opened up the hobby and really started changing an attitude in the hobby where you don't have that anymore. Now you can go to anybody and go, that is neat. How'd you do that? Oh, let me tell you how I did it. They're like waiting for someone to ask because they want to talk about it.
Exactly.
That's how it should be.
There was somebody at NNL East, he'd done a pickup and he had one of those web style tailgates on the back of the pickup.
Oh yeah.
And he did it. He wove the web style tailgate.
Oh wow.
I happened to look at me and said, "Would you like to hear how I made that?" And I said, "Yes, please." Just I have no
not that I ever want to do it, but I gotta know.
That's exactly it. I don't want to do it, but I gotta know how you did it.
Yeah. Oh
just
gosh.
Because.
Yeah. You don't run into that anymore. It's like most of those guys that they're not involved or gone by now, and there's kind of a different thing changed throughout the years. And I think it had a lot to do with more model shows, more of us model builders getting to interact with one another, and definitely with the internet coming and hobby heaven starting out, that got so many of us to get to know one another and friendships.
Exactly.
And that's why I had you on, because I just, well, first of all, your name is very distinctive, even though I said it wrong in my head all these years. But I just always remembered your, you and I always had very great back and forth conversations and stuff. And I always liked checking in on what Jackson was working on in the Can-Am garage. It was a neat way of presenting your models. So that's your part in this hobby. That's your little,
yeah, and it's funny, you're like only the second person who's ever realized that.
Really? Well, hopefully we got more people that realize that, because I can tell you,
it's not like I'm out here for fame and fortune or anything like that. But it's
but when you've done something that stands out and it inspires other builders to do it, and it continues on, it's kind of cool to at least someone notice, hey, but yeah, that was the guy who did it first. And I believe you were, because I don't remember anyone ever do. Well, heck, it was the first time of doing it. You might have had people take a picture or something that would make it in scale auto, but for it to become something like on an interactive thing that takes place every day, and the fact that you made a little story and created a character, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
George Lucas is to blame for that.
Well, that's true. That's true. Oh boy, yeah. But
yeah.
Anyways, John, I want to thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun. It was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Going back in memory lane there and talking about the old days. And for everybody out there who's, probably only been into this hobby and into getting on the internet with this hobby maybe the past 10 years or so. And you and I were plugging away at this in the early days of the late 90s, early O's. So it's changed. We saw a lot of change.
For me, even into the 80s for me. So.
Oh yeah, well, as far as a hobby, yeah, the 80s. I mean, pretty much my starting. Yeah. I started in 85, and I never stopped. Might have slowed down a little bit or something, but I have never stepped away from this hobby since 1985. And but 88, when I discovered scale auto, just like you, man. That's a neat story. Thanks for sharing that with us. But
happy to. Yeah.
Well, John,
it's how you get from there to here. That's the
exactly. Yeah, it's just,
as Tom Geiger said at NNL East, my first NNL East, he said, "You're not coming here for the models that you're putting on the table. You're coming here to shake hands, meet and greet, say hi. I'm so and so. Who are you?" and so forth and so on.
Oh yeah, that's 100%.
And there you go.
That is 100% right there.
It's a huge saying right here.
That's why I go to shows. It's the models are the icing on the cake. But
I think actually, as Tom put it, now I'm thinking more about it, refresh the memory. You're not driving 7 hours for the piece of plastic you're putting on the table.
True.
You're driving the 7 hours so you can press the flesh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun meeting all these people, especially nowadays. So much of us know each other doing this, but when we finally get to meet and shake hands, it's always a really cool thing. And that's what the model shows are what bring us together.
I still got enough French in me that I'll probably hug you and kiss you on both sides.
No problem. No
But
problem. I'm
that's the
Italian.
Italian thing. It's the
I'm
Italian thing
Italian.
too.
I'm Italian. It's
get
not
it.
foreign to me. It isn't. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. And now we're
Thanks
at
for
the
having me,
part of the
Luka.
show. Oh, absolutely. This was fun. And it's at the end of the part of the show, the end of the show, the part of the show that I put the guest on the spot. And are you prepared to be put on the spot?
Yeah, I guess so. I can
Oh,
manage.
okay. Well, you know what? Let's give you the stage.
Keep cutting the styrene, keep gluing those fingers together. Right?
Hey, that's perfect. It works for this show. All right. Thank
100%.
you so much. 100%. Well, thank you all for watching. And then I say the usual thing at the end. Here's the producers.